Hey, it's Mike. Thanks for tuning back in. Today's Wednesday. It's been another crazy week. It seems like every week's crazy right now, but it's been good. I have a really, really fascinating story here that I want to go through on a pre-rookie or XRC of Babe Ruth and the history behind this card. It's really, really interesting. First of all, though, I'm going to show you a couple cards I picked up this week. This one is a Scotty Barnes rookie card. I love these Donruss, the rookies or rated rookie cards. So this was a couple bucks at a local collectibles shop. I had to take that. And then if you follow me, you know that I'm collecting autographs from Perez Steel cards, Donruss Diamond Kings, usually Hall of Famers, but Ellis Burks was one of my favorite players as a kid when he played for the Red Sox. So I got this 1990 1990 Donruss Diamond Kings autographed by Burks. Sight unseen. I mentioned in a Facebook group I'm in looking for these, and somebody just said, I'll mail it to you, no problem. I don't usually like black marker and I would never pay for an inscription, but thrilled to have this for my PC. So that'll go very nicely in my Perez Steel boxes. So let's talk a little bit about Babe Ruth rookie cards. The number one Babe Ruth rookie card, as many people know, is the 1915-16 Sporting News card. That is considered his first card. But there is another card that some believe is his rookie card. I don't think so at all, but we can go through why that is as we talk about it. It is the 1914 Baltimore News Orioles card from when he played in the International League for the Baltimore Orioles in 1914. So the front of this card is his picture, and it's got a border. The back of it is their game schedule for that year. And I also want to mention here, before I continue, my longtime subscriber, ASMR People, suggested that I do this video. So I want to thank him for that, because when I read it, I was like, oh, this doesn't sound that interesting. And then as I read more and more articles about it, I got really excited to do this video. So I hope that comes across here and you enjoy this. I feel like my notes are a mess, and I hope I'm not in some crazy order here, but I do have a lot of notes that I'll be going through here. So this set in the 1914 Baltimore News baseball card set was just came in the newspaper, basically, and there were, according to PSA, there are 11 cards, but there's also a Dave Danforth card that was just discovered a few years ago. So, but PSA doesn't have that in their list. So I'm not really sure how that works. If you know, let me know in comments. And it was all cards of Baltimore's International League and Federal League teams. There were two variations of each card, one of them with a red tint, one of them with a blue tint. We're not going to get into all the different cards in the set because none of them really interested me that much like the Babe Ruth did. I was originally going to do a video on the set, but the Babe Ruth card I think is sufficient because there's just so much history behind this card. There are 75 of these cards from the set that are known to exist. 10 of them are Babe Ruth. Now there used to be 11. I'm going to talk about that 11th one in a little bit. This was Babe Ruth's rookie season, but he started the year playing in the International League and then got sold to Boston midway through the year. He was 19 years old. Of course, the Baltimore Orioles didn't come to Major League Baseball until 1954, but they were part of the International League until I think this 1914 was their last year. That year, for the Baltimore Orioles, he went 22-9. He threw 244 innings pitched. He had a 231 batting average with only a 282 on-base percentage and one home run. So, you can see why he was considered a pitcher at the time. He couldn't hit a lick, couldn't get on base at all. So he was sold to the Boston Red Sox in July of 1914 because the competition from the Baltimore Terrapins in the Federal League was making the Baltimore Orioles go broke. This card is very tough to find in good condition. PSA in their pop report has 1-1, 1-2, and 1-4. They have sold in 2006, one sold for $150,000. In 2009, it sold for $152,000, so only $2,000 more. And then a PSA 1 in 2013 sold for $450,000. So big increase there. And that was the last sale for quite a few years. All of those sales, I believe, were records for baseball cards, higher at the time than any of the Honus Wagners. 10 of these exist, like I mentioned. 3 of them are just entrenched in one person's personal collection. Didn't get any details on that one, but got to be a pretty amazing collection. That person has 1 blue, 1 red, and then 1 back variation, which I wasn't able to find any details on. Then 2 others are in another collection, 1 red, 1 blue. So half of the entire population of this card are in 2 collections. Pretty fascinating stuff. There were 11, like I mentioned, but one owner lost his. And the magazine that I was reading, Sports Collector Digest maybe, had actually called him to find out what he was going to do with his, and he admitted to them that he had lost it. He brought it to his office, and he thinks it was either stolen or, more likely, thrown out in the garbage accidentally. And as we get more into the values of these, as I move through this video, you're going to really feel badly for this guy. The first one was sold at auction as part of the Copeland collection in the late 1980s for $6,600, which at the time was a lot of money. Then Barry Halper, I've mentioned the Halper collection. I'm going to do a video on that at some point. Probably another video on the Copeland collection too. Sold about a decade later for $80,000. So now we're getting up into the almost 6 figures. And then, as I mentioned, the other 3 sold earlier this century. But then in 2021, a private buyer bought this card for an undisclosed price. It's all they would say, the auction house would say, was that it was more than the Mantle record at the time of $5.2 million. Is valued at $6 million, believed to have gone for about $6 million. It was an SGC3. And for 20 years, it was held at the Babe Ruth Museum in Baltimore, and they just didn't know what they had. I'm going to go a little bit into the history of that too, but this seller, the new buyer, is actually allowing fractional ownership at $3 per share. They sold 20,000 shares, so valuing this fractional ownership at $60,000, and it made up 1% of the value of the car, which is where they get $6 million value. So this is via Collectible. You might be familiar with Collectible. I would never do fractional ownership, but it's not for me. It might be for you. That's cool. So the owner actually retains 99% of the value, and if he ever sells it, then the fractional owners get a piece of it as well. So for 20 years, it was held at the Babe Ruth Museum, and this guy is still housing it at the Babe Ruth Museum because he appreciates a good card and wants to make sure that people see it. He said something like, I could put it in my personal collection and it would collect dust there, but he'd rather people see it. And he said the only problem is when people come to his house, they want to take a picture of it, but obviously he can't because it's at the Babe Ruth Museum. So they have to settle for having a picture with his T206 Honus Wagner. What a shame. The original owner of this was Archibald Davis, and you know, with somebody named Archibald's probably somebody who is not from modern time. He was a newspaper salesman, delivery guy back in the 19-teens, and he collected these cards. And he gave his collection to his son Richard in 1952. And Richard loaned it to the Babe Ruth Museum in 1998. So that's where it started with the museum. In 2006, Forbes wrote an article that mentioned it as the most valuable, maybe the most valuable card in the world. And knowing that an SGC3 sold for $6 million, just imagine if one came out that was an SGC5 or SGC8 or PSA 7. What would those sell for if an SGC3 goes for $6 million? It boggles the mind. If the Mantle from 1952 SGC 9.5 sold for $12.6 million, I don't know. I can't speculate. I'm not good at that, but you've got to think it would be tens of millions of dollars, well into the tens of millions of dollars. So in the Davis's son, Richard, in 2020, removed it from the museum to sell it. And when he went to sell it, apparently it hit the news, and his sister Virginia sued him for ownership, claiming that because his will said that they were to split everything, that she owned half of the card. But the problem is, he said that his collection had been gifted to him in 1952 by his father. And the court sided with him eventually, but it took a long time. And the judge also ruled that the statute of limitation had lapsed. So Virginia didn't have a claim anyway. So it still is displayed now alongside Babe Ruth's first marriage certificate and a scorebook from his first professional game. So something, if you're in the Baltimore area, to go and check out, get a picture of. I think it's pretty neat stuff. I feel for this poor guy who probably threw away his copy of it, the 11th copy, now in a dump somewhere, completely destroyed. Another SGC did sell in 2008 for $517,000, so it's gone up basically 12x in 13 years. Pretty good investment if you're going to buy a baseball card and have it go up 12x, so really any investment. So let me know what you think about this story, the history behind this card. Is it his rookie card in your opinion? What other cards or sets are you interested in learning more about? Because I probably am too, especially if it's pre-war vintage. But I'll also consider post-war vintage as well. Let me know in the comments. Thanks very much for watching. If you're new here, please click that subscribe button. I appreciate it.